All right, the distributive property, it's important in a lot of situations. Let's take a look at this. You got 3 times this quantity. Hey, if we want to, we can just use order of operations, do what's in parentheses first. That takes us down to 13, and then multiply 3 times 13, we get 39. Now, how does the distributive property work? We've seen it. It's just the 3 gets multiplied by every term that's inside the parentheses. So the 3 gets multiplied by the 5, the 3 times the 2, and the 3 times the 6. This is 15, that's 6, 3 times 6, 18. It still gives you the same answer. Now, which begs the question, why would you want to use the distributive property? It's so much more time consuming than just using the order of operations. I'm glad you asked. All right, well, the reason is because a lot of times we're going to have these quantities that these are not like terms, so we can't combine them, we can't simplify what's in parentheses, so we may need to distribute the 3 across this. All right, so if we take the 3 times the 2x, we get 6x. We take the 3 times the 1, and we get 3 equal to 39. Now it's a simple 2-step equation that we can solve. Now, I'm going to take a little detour, and I'm going to say this. As we go through this Algebra 1 course, I'm going to ask you to be on your toes to look for simpler ways to do problems just by understanding mathematics and looking for more efficient ways to handle this. Honestly, we still don't need the distributive property in this one. If it were me doing this problem, I'd say to myself, 39 is divisible by 3. So if I do the same thing to both sides, namely dividing both sides by 3, then what I end up with is the quantity 2x plus 1, I also made the parentheses disappear, equals 13. It keeps the number smaller, and I think it's an easier way to do the problem. So a lot of times as math teachers will say, hey, you see this situation, automatically go to the distributive property. The more you understand about math, you could actually take a shortcut and still avoid the distributive property. I sometimes call it the Santa Claus rule, because Santa has to visit every house in the neighborhood. So it's kind of like that. Okay, but anyway, here's the deal. As we go further into the course and we start working with quadratics, we're going to be taking 2-term polynomials times 2-term polynomials, otherwise known as a binomial times a binomial. And if we understand the distributive property, then here's the deal. You have 2 terms here and 2 terms there, and they all have to get multiplied together. So 2 times 2 means there should be 4 products, 4 things that get multiplied. Now here's what we're going to do. If we use the distributive property, then we say, okay, look, this term over here has to get multiplied by each term over here. And then the second term in this little polynomial also has to get distributed to each term. And that's where the 4 products come from. So the distributive property is going to be more and more important as we go further along, but it's given that a lot of times we're going to be able to avoid using it. Well, here's a case where if we're trying to simplify this, we have to use the distributive property because these are 3 different terms. You can't combine them and simplify them. So now we just go ahead and take the 5 times the 2x and we get 10x plus the 5 times the 2y and we get 10y. Then there's a minus sign, and the 5 times the 12 and we get 60. So there, we use the distributive property. So that's just a quick idea of looking at the distributive, and there are times when we should use it and maybe times when we don't need to.